you want to land your dream job in cybersecurity and outshine the hundreds of other candidates? I'm Nathan from StationX, and in this episode of Cyber Security Diaries, I'm revealing the most overlooked career accelerator in our industry, personal branding. I brought in personal branding master Ken Underhill, who's helped thousands of cybersecurity professionals land roles in Fortune 500 companies. Together, we'll break down the exact strategies that transform complete beginners into sought-after cybersecurity experts. This isn't just theory. We recorded this conversation live with hundreds, where Ken shares real examples and practical steps you can implement today. You'll learn how to build authority in the field, get noticed by top employers, and create opportunities that most candidates never see. So stay until the end, and I'll give you the free access to the Cybersecurity Career Mega Pack, your complete blueprint for breaking into the industry. And we're talking about certification guides, role-specific roadmaps, skills assessments, and even tools to match you with your perfect cybersecurity role. Smash that subscribe button and let's transform your cybersecurity career. Here's the podcast recording. So I'm super delighted to have Ken Underhill joining us for this live podcast. Ken was a co-founder of CyberLife. It's an organization that's dedicated to cybersecurity education for professionals and organizations as well. He's one of the authors of the international best-selling book, Hack the Cybersecurity Interview, which is a must-read. I'll give you a link to that if you're interested. And you've also won multiple awards, and you've educated thousands of people, or perhaps more than that, through online courses, which are available at StationX. And you cover topics like personal branding, mastering interview skills, landing the right job. And you've also featured on like Forbes, Fox, NBC, and others. So he's helped countless professionals. And so I'm super excited to have Ken with us here today, and obviously really appreciate you being here. How was that? Was that about right?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Nathan, and welcome everyone. Yeah. So as Nathan mentioned, former on CyberLife, exited that last year.
So why don't we start off with, I think it's probably saying, what is personal branding? Let's start off with that. Obviously, people are here because they've seen the title personal branding. But I think actually a lot of people don't really know what it is. They think branding, they think companies. And I actually think a lot of people are not that interested in personal branding, or they dismiss it a little bit. So let's just start with, what is personal branding? Why should we care about it as people that are in cybersecurity?
Yeah, and I think you gave a good answer there, right? Like, company has a brand. You buy some clothes, you go eat at a restaurant, you buy a phone, Android, iPhone, whatever. That company has somehow branded themselves. Basically, they just got visibility in your mind. That might come from a family member saying, oh, this restaurant's really good, from an advertisement you see online. It could be a social media post, could be something on the news, et cetera. There's a lot of ways that a company could reach you. So you say, ooh, I need a new phone. Let me go buy an iPhone. In the same way, you want to get awareness about you and essentially get people thinking about you in a certain way. So for example, if I think of Nike, I think of shoes. If I think of phone, or if I think of Apple, I think of a phone or a tablet or whatever. So they branded themselves a certain way. If I think of McDonald's, I think of doing US food that's going to kill me, but I think of cheeseburgers and things like that. So they're all these companies, they've got what Nathan said is a brand. And in the same way, you have your own personal brand. Now, what does that mean in the context of your cybersecurity career? That means that you want to be known in a specific area. For example, if your goal, or whoever on this call, if your goal is to be a penetration tester, and that's a career that you want, then your branding should be all around that. You shouldn't be posting about SOC analyst related stuff. At least for the most part, you should be focused on just pen testing. If you want to be a SOC analyst or cybersecurity analyst, or if you want to work in GRC or be auditing, whatever the initial path you want to do is, or for those that are already working in cyber, if you want a career change into something else, everything should be around, right? Now, you may ask this question, so I may be jumping ahead here, Nathan, but oftentimes new people or people trying to get their first job in cybersecurity are like, I have nothing to share. I don't know anything. I'm just learning. I'm not an expert. I can tell you right now, I don't call myself an expert. I've been doing this for a couple of decades now. I really don't think anyone's an expert, because TTPs or tactics, techniques, procedures are always changing. Threat actors trying new things. Technology is evolving. I really don't think anyone out there is an expert. We just try to do the best that we can. For someone brand new, you just are going to basically document your journey, right? That's what your branding would be, right? Let's say you want to be a pen tester. You're learning on try Hack Me or Hack the Box or StationX or wherever, your posting on social media is all about that, but it's your journey. Hey, I learned this new thing. Hey, look at me doing this. Here's how you set up something as simple as VirtualBox. And here's how you set up some VMs in VirtualBox. You'd be surprised at how many people can't. What you're doing with that, in addition to putting yourself out there, you're also showing a hire manager like myself that you're someone I can bring on the team that can train others. Because I can train anyone on anything, right? I can pay for you to go through training. I can pay for you to go with StationX and take every course they have. But I can't train you on ambition. I can't train you to have the hustle. And so what the personal branding does is it really shows me as a hire manager that, okay, you're taking that initiative and you're able to show me that you do some things and that you're able to make contributions to the industry. And really personal branding is not just someone trying to get in. It's same with someone experienced, someone that's an executive level. You're really just trying to showcase who you are and what you want to be known for, essentially. I know that was a very long-winded answer to your question, Nathan, but hopefully that clears up what a personal brand is and why it's.
Do you know what I found interesting is you mentioned that everything should be about the role. And I think that really needs to be hammered home, not just for personal branding, but for your education, for your getting into cybersecurity, for your skills, for your certifications. It should be about the role you're going into. It's totally different if you're going to be an auditor versus a pen tester versus a chief information security officer. And it obviously just spreads through to your personal branding clearly, because that's what you're representing yourself as. So I think if for anyone that's not really sure where they're going in cybersecurity in terms of role, at a certain point, you have to know. At the beginning, you've got to get all your foundational stuff down. But at a certain point, if no wind is favorable if you don't know what port you're sailing towards. Yeah. So
100% true. And I think when we talk about challenges with personal branding, the number one challenge is people don't know what they want to do. You'll go on LinkedIn, you'll see someone's profile that says cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst, pen tester, threat hunter, threat intel, GRC. I'm like, what do you want to do? Pick one, right? And I know it's extremely difficult especially when you're brand new, everything seems cool. Right? Everything's cool. I'm like, oh, but the reality is you have to pick one. And if that means that you pick your top three and then you flip a coin or something and then you get down to two and then you flip a coin again and okay, here it is. So be it. Understand that you can always change at some point, right? And another thing that might help you try to figure out what you want to do is look at the actual job market. What I see, especially here in the US, a lot of people, because hacking is so cool, everyone wants to be a pen tester, right? But the reality is there are not that many jobs on the offensive side of security. There just aren't, especially without a security clearance to do government work. So look at the job market wherever you are in the world and be realistic. Okay, I want to be a penetration tester, but everything I'm seeing open right now is for IT auditing or cybersecurity auditor or whatever. Okay, I know that I probably need to start in that career first, get my first job, then that'll open up more opportunities as I keep growing in my career. But the biggest challenge I see on social media, especially for people that reach out to me, hey, I need help, I'm trying to find a job. They don't know what they want to do. Now, the problem with that, besides the training stuff Nathan mentioned, the other problem with that is if someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I'm looking for a good SOC analyst and I'm looking for someone that we can train up, someone that's ambitious, et cetera, right? If I look at your profile and I see 6 different cybersecurity jobs you're listing there that you want to do, I don't know what you want to do, right? I really don't. I don't know which one is the priority there. Now, if someone else that I've interacted with, hey, I want to be a SOC analyst and everything they're posting about a SOC analyst and everything they're learning is to become a better SOC analyst, then I'm probably going to, let's say Nathan's the one with a job. I'm going to say, hey, Nathan, check out this person here. They're learning a lot. They're posting, trying to help others, et cetera, all around SOC analysts. So it's not that Nathan and I are trying to be jerks, so we got to pick one thing. It's the reality is nobody can help you get a job if they don't know what you want to do. That's just the reality of how it works. Same thing if you apply for jobs and you are applying for cybersecurity analyst roles, but your profile is everything around GRC. When a recruiter or HR person comes there, they're going to be a little confused. So you don't want any confusion at all on what it is that you want to do. And again, I know when you're starting out, it's very difficult usually to figure out exactly one path. But if that means you need to flip a coin or use one of those generators online or even ask AI, hey, what should I do theoretically? Which one of these should I pick? Can you randomly choose or something? So be it. But I really would start with the job market where you are. Like what's realistic for you to get? And that really should determine what you want to start with. Of course, everyone wants to make 6 figures, all that good stuff, but you lots of times have to start someplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few tips for people that are on StationX, and guys probably know this already. So everybody who has a roadmap, almost everybody will have some sort of section on essentially how to pick your role. Because this is so key, we have a whole stuff for how to do that. Now, one thing that is available for people that aren't on StationX is we have the Cybersecurity Career Matchmaker. So I'll pop the link in there. Let me know if you can see that. And that's a tool, asks you a bunch of questions about your personality and what skills you currently don't know, and then it'll give a suggestion as to the sort of role that you might want to go into. And as Ken alluded to, if you don't have many skills, then you'll be starting off in junior roles or even what we call feeder roles that feed you into cybersecurity. And another thing related to what Ken said is that at StationX, we have a tool to help you do what's called a gap analysis between yourself and the role that you want to go into. So at StationX, we have you define what your long-term vision and goal is, but there could be roles on the way to that are milestones and stepping stones to get there. But simply a gap analysis is, as John says, you look at the job market and what can you do and what can't you do and how big's the gap? And then how long is it going to take to fill that gap? And that can help you decide on what's going to be that first role versus then the long-term vision for what you want to move into. Ken, if someone's starting out, you mentioned document your journey. Anything else? Any other tips for people that are just starting out with their personal branding or starting out in cybersecurity?
I would say, so just recap for those maybe joining a little later, picking one thing you want, which career you actually want. The other thing I'll say is that do whatever medium works best for you, right? For example, if you're more comfortable just screen recording, not being on camera, but showing like how to set something up or do some kind of hands-on thing, great. If you're a writer and you prefer to write on a post or write an article or something, great. If you just prefer audio or pictures or whatever way is more comfortable for you. I am totally horrible using Canva as an artist. It looks horrible when I do it. So I don't normally do that because I know that's not a strength. For me, I don't always like being on camera. I'm totally an introvert. I know some people are like, that's crazy. You're always on podcasts and stuff, but I'm really an introvert.
That's true. You are.
I know. But so for me, I'm really good at like screen recording and talking you through how to do something. Like that's me, right? I don't consider myself a writer. I can write posts and stuff, and I do that sometimes. But like I know my strengths, right? I know the things that I would prefer doing, and that's how I post them usually, or how I would do them. Whatever medium you're comfortable with. Again, you don't have to be on camera, and you can use free tools like Loom, or it used to be called Screencast-O-Matic. I forget the new name. But that's what I've used for years, and they have a free version. A lot of them have a free version. You don't have to pay any money. I think is one key thing I want to put across around personal branding. Like a LinkedIn account is free. I know we might have been talking about website. Like you don't need a website. You can use GitHub or something. If you're doing more technical things, you want to showcase it there. You can do a free YouTube channel. When there's a lot of ways, just again, whatever medium is best for you. It might be a podcast where you interview other people trying to get their first job. But again, you hear from their challenges and maybe you bring on some experienced people, et cetera. So that's another tip I would have. The other tip I'll say is that leverage what's already out there instead of trying to recreate the wheel. So let me explain that. A lot of people will tell you, oh, you need to get a personal website. I'm actually against that. Number one, cost. Not everybody has extra money. I grew up very poor. I didn't have extra money for a website or anything like that. I'm against that because it's an extra cost for you, but also who's realistically going to find your website? Unless you do a lot of SEO work, unless you put a lot of work behind it, nobody's going to find your website. You might link it on your social media, but otherwise nobody's going to Google search for you. What you could do is instead, if you want your name to get out there, put a course up on like Udemy, put some videos on YouTube with your name in the title of the video, along with whatever you're teaching people. Be on different podcasts, volunteer as a guest to go on podcasts, even local media here in the US. You can get on local media stations pretty easily around cybersecurity stuff, depending on the time of the year, especially around October with Awareness Month. So leverage the places essentially that already have done all that, already spent all the money for advertising and SEO work and all that stuff. So when someone Googles your name, if you Google my name, you're going to see different things. You might see Cybery. I don't know if they still got me. I think I still have courses on my website, but Udemy, you'll see it there. You'll see YouTube. You'll see different podcasts I've been on. You'll see LinkedIn. So that's what you're trying to do. Also with the personal branding is leverage those resources that are already there and just get your name there. And that's what, like, when you look at some of these people that you maybe look up to in the industry and you're like, wow, they were on, Nathan mentioned earlier, oh, he's on NBC and Forbes and all that. That's all that was. It's just reaching out to those places, contributing to an article or going on their news station or whatever to speak about something. That was all free. I didn't pay for anything. Right. And so leverage what's there, because then you can get in the top of Google search on page one. So if I search for your name on page one of Google, I'm like, oh, wow, this person's on page one of Google. They must know their stuff. Even if you're brand new, I'm going to think there's something. Right. So the other bit of advice here is just leverage what's free out there versus trying to spend a lot of money. I know some people on social media will tell you, you got to buy this and that, you need this and that, and you don't need any of that stuff. You especially don't need somebody's $10,000 coaching program where they're promising you that you're going to get a 6-figure cybersecurity job in 3 months or whatever. It's just not realistic for the vast majority of people with no IT experience whatsoever. So save your money. Like I said, I grew up very poor, so I'm very intelligent with my spending. And you could get a cybersecurity job without really spending any money. You can start it from here. It's just, you got to have that hustle and be willing to look for those opportunities as they come along.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey there, quick pause. We just checked our analytics and only 7.5% of you watching right now are subscribed. We're aiming to get that up to 20% so we can keep bringing you in-depth cybersecurity career content like this. So if you're finding value in these strategies, hit that subscribe button now. I really, really appreciate it. It helps us more than you can imagine. And you'll never miss out on our latest career insights and expert interviews. Plus, you'll be the first to know when we release new resources like our free career mega pack. All right. Let's get back to the personal branding. So LinkedIn obviously is one of the big ones. Any advice for how people here should tackle LinkedIn? What should we put on there? Personal brand statements, are those relevant?
Yeah. So with LinkedIn, number one, you want to, as best as you can, because again, we've got a broad audience here. So don't feel like you've got to go pay for professional photographs, but as good of photographs as you can get as far as your profile photo. Again, it could be with your cell phone, but just you could get something like, I have a spaceship here, but you don't need that. You can just use a blank wall or something like that, but a professional photo. And then as we talked about earlier, picking one thing, right? When I look at your headline, it should be something either SOC analyst or I'm looking for SOC analyst jobs, whatever it is. It could be that I help companies do this thing. I help companies reduce whatever the headline you want to put there is, but it needs to be clearly the about section. And we'll probably run over if I try to dig real deep into LinkedIn, but the about section should just, again, talk about some of the key skills you have, what you can do for an organization. It's really just a sales page is what your LinkedIn is. You're trying to sell the employer on why they should reach out to you. Key thing here on the experience of your LinkedIn profile, that should exactly match your resume or a CV, depending on what country you're in. You might call it a different thing, but your experience in most places should match up exactly. If I look at your resume, the first thing I'm going to do, at least me personally, is I'm going to go look for you on LinkedIn. If I see any discrepancies, I'm going to ask myself, like, why is there a difference? What are they trying to hide between the two things? Right. So make sure those match up exactly. Even if you were only at a job a few months, you got laid off or something, put that on there and mention the reason why, hey, I got laid off or whatever the case might be, right? That's totally fine to do. Those are the key things, right? Your headline, the about section, making sure you have a professional photo. The biggest thing that I see people making the mistake on is that they don't pick one thing. They have all these different job titles listed in their profile and it makes it confusing. If I can look at your profile, like I said earlier, and I can see, okay, you want to be a SOC analyst. I'll probably keep an eye on your profile. And if I like what you're doing, how you're giving back to the community by posting, trying to help people. When someone asks me, hey, someone that we can train up as a SOC analyst, I'm say, hey, check out this person here. And people have literally gotten jobs in the past from me doing that. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it for everyone on this call, but if you're branding yourself, you're going to find that opportunities come to you versus you constantly having to apply to jobs and never hear back.
Yeah. So should everybody really then have a LinkedIn profile, you think?
Yeah, 100%. The only time you shouldn't is if you're currently doing classified government work and they've got, at least here in the US, they've got stipulations of what you can and can't do. And you definitely can't have your photo out there in most cases. And so those rare situations, which probably nobody on this call, to be realistic, those would be where you wouldn't have social media, but everybody else should. There's no reason why you should. Even if you're working a job right now and you're like, well, if my boss sees my social media, in most cases, unless you're talking bad about the company you work at, they're not going to care. Unless you're talking about, I'm trying to leave this job I hate, that you go do this, they're not going to care. Really, everyone needs one. Again, it's really up to you. Everyone out here, I'm assuming, is an adult. So you can make your own decisions. The very first thing I do for a candidate that I'm considering to bring in for an interview is I'll look them up on LinkedIn and I'll see what are they posting about, I'm also going to do some Google searching because maybe you've got a Instagram and you're posting a bunch of racist stuff on it. And I want to see that in advance. So I can say, oh yeah, no, this wouldn't be a good, fit for our team. But your social media activity across the board really determines, in my opinion, if you're going to get that interview. It doesn't mean you're never going to get an interview if you don't have a LinkedIn, but it's where the cybersecurity hiring managers are these days. They may have an X or Twitter, what it used to be called, but the reality is they're on LinkedIn. The conversations happen on LinkedIn. The ability for someone like Nathan or myself or someone else that's more experienced in industry to introduce you to someone that happens on LinkedIn. I really, people do check their email. I don't want to say they don't, but if you email me, if I put my email, you're never going to get a response, really. Nathan does because we've known each other for years, but most people, you're just going to go to spam or whatever. We've got filters on my emails. I'm saying that to see that more experienced people typically, the LinkedIn conversation, it makes it easier on everyone. I can quickly introduce you to a hiring manager, a recruiter, someone that reached out to me and said, hey, here's the person I was telling you about. And all of a sudden you've got a phone call and you get an interview because you have a LinkedIn. But if you don't have a LinkedIn, I can't do any of that. And again, most people don't. We get, all of you on this call probably experience it. You get so many emails. That's not the way anymore. That's the early 2000s way or 1990s way of things. LinkedIn's the way these days. So to Nathan's question directly to all of you, my personal opinion, you absolutely need to have a LinkedIn unless you've got that rare case of you can't have it because you're stuck.
And do you have any specific strategies? So for example, posting, should you post? Should you comment? Anything there, personal branding?
So you want to do everything you can, but there's a caveat. So let me explain. First thing you need to do is get your profile in order. Because if you, like, let's say you had a business and you had a website and it was really ugly sales page, it didn't work, nothing worked on the website, and you kept telling people about the website, people are going to go there and, ooh, I don't want to buy something from this place, or they're going to immediately go away. You'll never get them as a customer. If you think of that mentality of a business owner, your LinkedIn, you want that profile to be ready as you start doing other things and people come to your profile. They say, okay, Jennifer wants to be a SOC analyst, and I say SOC analyst a lot. It's just a lot of people want to do it. Get your profile in order first. That's the absolute number one thing. Get that profile looking pretty good. And I've got some free videos. If you search my name on YouTube, I've got one or two free videos on LinkedIn profile, but there's other people that have videos out there too you can look at. But get that in order first. And then from there, it's more about your time, right? When I say the caveat, how much time do you have to dedicate to this? You don't have to post every day, but what can you post? Can you commit to every Sunday posting something, whether it's a video or a written post or whatever? And then as far as commenting on posts, I know a lot of people do that. It's got to be valuable, right? If I do a post, and most of my posts these days are just sharing free notes for Sec Plus and other certs. If you're on there and you're like, hey, I've also got some notes for the CompTIA A+ exam, there's a link to it, everybody. If you're studying for that one, that's a valuable comment. What's not a valuable comment is like commenting for reach, like a lot of people do. There's no value there. You're just wasting your time, right? You're not really getting any more visibility or anything. You get lost in the noise. So when it comes to commenting on other people's posts, if you find value in the post, you can say, hey, I found this valuable or whatever. Stuff like that is cool. But the reality is the more you post, the more you put content out there, the more you volunteer and go on podcasts and stuff, which again are free to do. If anyone's charging me for a podcast, don't do it. But just go on for free to the ones you can. And that's going to get your name out there more. And you're also going to get what we call cross branding. So like, for example, if there's so many podcasts out there, but if you go on someone's podcast and they've got a good brand in the industry and you're on their podcast, all of a sudden people look at you like, oh, who's this person? And that's why I say your profile needs to be in order, because then people are going to go immediately to your profile and learn more about you. And then if they have a role open and they see that you're looking for that type of role, they're probably going to message you, say, hey, I don't know if you're interested or if you're still looking, but I've got this job open. I'm the hiring manager. If you're interested, send me your resume. All of a sudden, because you went on a couple of podcasts, you got your profile in order, you've done some posting of your own, all of a sudden where everybody else is taking 2-3 years to get a job, you just got to interview with the hiring manager and they reach out to you, and that'll happen in a couple of months, right? Or maybe a couple of weeks even. And in a few cases, people have been hired in 2 weeks of doing some of these things. It doesn't happen always, but so when we talk about posting and stuff on social media, you got to really do what you can be consistent with. And again, depending on where you are in the world, I know internet's sketchy in a lot of countries, power might go out, etc. It really depends on your specific situation. But the number one thing of anything is getting your profile in order first. Then you can worry about doing all this other stuff.
Yeah, I think my tip would be, even if you're at the beginning and we're talking about sort of documenting your journey, is offering value. So when you're documenting your journey, someone else is seeing what you're doing, and then they can, if they're trying to do that thing, it's going to help them replicate the thing. So you're always, Even though you are selling yourself, you're selling yourself through offering value. And as someone who's hired obviously lots of security people, I'm looking to hire you to solve a problem that I've got. And the problem is that I need a certain thing to be done. And if I look at your profile and you can do 50 things, you're watered down. And I don't care about 49 of them. I only care about the one that you're trying to solve or that I want you to solve. So that's why, again, the role, aiming towards a particular role is important. Yeah. So what about other social media platforms? What do you think about X and putting your beach shots on Instagram and things like that? You did mention about how you look for potentially negative things online. I think that's pretty much established now. If someone generally in a business will do that, unless they're a startup or something like that, the HR is, I'm sure that you can probably buy stuff that does it via AI now, that HR departments are probably buying. Press a button in auto search if someone's posted something dodgy online.
Yeah, I think similar to a business, I make a lot of analogies to business because you are a business. You need to have a mindset that you're a business. You deliver value to the actual business. And especially when and it's not this conversation, but when you think of like negotiation of compensation, you are a business. So you need to understand the value you bring to that other business. But if we have that business mindset, a lot of mistakes smaller businesses make is they hear this term omnipresent, which means you're just everywhere. They put so much effort trying to be everywhere that they're nowhere. And so my caution to all of you is pick one platform, get really good, really branded on that platform. Then you can worry about other stuff. For example, yeah, you might want to do X and you might want to do, what's the other one? A lot of people, Mastodon. I think people do a lot of streaming on these days. You might want to do Instagram. You might want to do Snapchat. You might want to do YouTube. You might want to do, I don't know why you'd want to do Facebook, but maybe you want to do Facebook and LinkedIn, and pick one. And my recommendation for all of you is pick LinkedIn first, get that in order first. Then you can worry about, okay, now I've got LinkedIn, I've got posting there. I want to do more videos and get better reach. Let me put those on your YouTube channel and do that. The worst thing you can do is try to be everywhere at once, because the reality is hiring managers are on LinkedIn. Yeah, they might have an X and they might watch YouTube and they might watch TikTok, but where they're really focused on business, job related stuff is LinkedIn. So it's fine to have the others, but you really got to focus. The more you focus, and alluding back to what Nathan and I have been talking about throughout this whole thing of picking one thing, do the same thing with a social media platform. Pick one thing. The more you focus, the more likely you are to actually get a job a lot faster than people that try to spread themselves all over. And it goes back to when Nathan was talking about the learning. If you try to learn all the skills to be a SOC analyst, all the skills to be a cybersecurity engineer, all the skills to be good at auditing, all the skills to be a penetration tester, all the skills to be a threat hunter, threat intel, et cetera, you're not going to really be good at anything, right? Because the skills for all those, even at a general level, come from years of working in an actual business, doing a cybersecurity role, seeing the challenges those other teams have, learning from them, maybe switching your career path throughout your career, et cetera. They don't come from watching a bunch of video or doing a bunch of pre-canned labs that walk you through step by step. And to what Nathan said earlier, you got 50 different skills listed. What are like the top 5 skills for that particular role? And I had seen in the QA, someone mentioned about, the question was about certifications. Hey, every company's listing a different certification for entry-level SOC position. I'm not a fan of certifications. Reality is, in most places, those and college degrees are a necessary evil because there's gatekeeping, right? If you don't have that, they're like, oh, this person's no good because they don't have Security Plus or whatever. My suggestion there, instead of looking at the certs they're looking for, what are the skills they're looking for in those different job descriptions? So, for example, you could copy and paste all of those job descriptions and just label them like 1, 2, 3, whatever, into a Google Doc, download it, throw it in ChatGPT and say, hey, tell me the top 3 to 5 skills that are the hard skills, the technical skills, and then also the top 3 to 5 soft skills that are common across all these job descriptions. And then ChatGPT or similar, Gemini, whatever you want to use, can give you an idea of what are they actually looking for those jobs. It's not usually, I say gatekeeping, it's not usually the certs, it's not usually the degrees. There's usually certain skills they're looking for that are common across the board for the vast majority of organizations that they need someone to do. Now, there's a caveat there, right? A lot of times they don't list these in the job description, right? I actually had someone reach out a couple of years ago. Hey, I'm looking for someone entry level for this job. He sent me the job description. Now, this is at a big telecom provider. And I look at the job description. Oh, this is a wish list, right? They had all these things. I'm like, even someone experienced doesn't have all this. Even someone with 5 years experience doesn't meet this. So I pitch back to the person. I say, what's the number one technical skill you need them to have? And they're like, I need them to be decent with Linux server administration. That was listed nowhere in the job description. So I'm saying that to say that sometimes you still can't get an idea of what they really want. But for the most part, you can do something like that where you just compare job description and use tools that are available like I to help you with that. So you don't spend tons of hours going through and trying to compare notes and all that. Just let it do it for you. That's my suggestion for the person that had that question on certification stuff. I think we got a lot of questions. Some stuff is, I saw someone asking about a VPN. That's based on your needs. You go just analyze VPN based on your needs. A lot of people use Proton, but your needs of using something like that. Text.
VPS. And we're not going to be recommending antivirus either.
Yeah, stuff like that we can't cover for you on these types of events.
No,
do
no.
what works best for
you. Yeah, that process that Ken was describing within StationX terminology, we call that the gap analysis. We have a tool for that. And I'm actually in that conversation with a few people at StationX. And it's pretty much exactly the same. And me and Ken have not even had a conversation about this. But we do exactly the same. It's you need to figure out what those top 5, 10 things are. We call them capabilities. And again, we mentioned the soft skills as well and the hard skills. And where's the gap there? And that's the gap that you've got to close. And if that gap is too big, then it's going to take you a long time. And there may be milestone things that you need to do there. I was just thinking, when it comes to personal branding, I find a lot of people are pretty slack generally. They get the skills, if they get the skills. First of all, most people don't get the skills or the search or anything. They end up quitting. But those that get through, they don't take it seriously, really, do they? Or at least in my experience, they don't. Why maybe they might do a LinkedIn and they'll do their resume, but the way we're talking about it, I think that's quite far away from people's vision of what they should do. But why do you think that is?
So I think a lot of what you're alluding to there. So to just clarify it for everyone, what will happen a lot of times is you might do a little bit of effort, as Nick is saying, like you learn some things, you maybe fix your LinkedIn profile a little bit, you post a little bit, but then it's sporadic. And then your favorite shows on Netflix, you're like, let me go watch this. Let me go hang with my friends. But what we're talking about is what a lot of people call like a hustle mentality, right? And realistically, if we just take a step back on any cybersecurity career, I know a lot of people will tell you entry-level cybersecurity career. The reality of traditionally in the past is you would come from, like Nathan mentioned earlier, a feeder role. And someone actually mentioned a question in chat, QA about what types of feeder roles. And so I'll address it here in a second. But traditionally, you'd have to come from something else. Many of us came from kind of a more traditional IT background or something like technical writing, whatever. And we came into the job from there. And I think there's a misconception with, I mentioned the coaching programs that charge you 10, 20 grand or whatever. There's a misconception because of people like that and also the media and also these boot camps and other programs. I think there's a misconception across the industry that you can do all this in a month or two. And yes, it does happen for some people. They get things that fast. But the reality
those are the hustlers.
Yeah,
they have a different. Yeah.
Yes. The vast majority of you that are trying to get a job, you may hate me for this. Feel free to hate me. That's totally fine. But I tell you like it is. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff, etc. The vast majority of people out there trying to get their first cybersecurity job, it's taking them 2 to 3 years. Not everybody, but I'm not saying that the people taking 2 to 3 years are not hustlers too, because it's not always the case. Some of them are really putting in the work. Some of it's opportunities, some of it's where you live, right? There's so many factors like any other career, but to be good at something, even software development, someone coming out of a boot camp, they think they know stuff. And I'm going to speak as like a non-coder, like I could do some Python scripting, but like, if you want me to write your next app, I'm not sure yet. Like there's a lot better people out there than me. I'm going to totally screw it up. And I'm happy to admit that. But like software development takes a long time to get good at. And the people that make it look easy, those are the people that are doing it for years and years. So same with a physician. You don't want a doctor that's just spent 3 months learning something to work on. A doctor in the US they do undergrad, they go for 4 years of medical school, they then do fellowship and residency and all these things after they're done with college to make sure they can do the thing before they're like set free in the world to go work on people. Because you don't want someone like, oh, which scalpel should I be using again? You don't want that, right? In the middle of a surgery. So there's a misconception out there, I think, a lot of times that like, cybersecurity jobs I did try Hackney or I went through certain trainings or whatever. And I got my Security Plus. Where's my job at? And as Nathan mentioned, you've got to be a hustler. So the way, again, going back to a business mindset, right? If I have a business, I can't just sit there and hope that people show up as customers because then I won't have a business, right? I need to actually go out there, actively be trying to get sales for my business. And in this case, you are the business. So you need to be actively what we call hustling to get more business, right? To get sales, right? To basically the sales in this case is you getting even just conversations with hire managers or recruiters, right? Just or people in industry at a more senior level than you. You got to have that hustle. So I think, what we see oftentimes, and again, this is from us helping thousands of people over the years, both of us, telling you this stuff of what we've seen. The vast majority of people, they'll do it for maybe a month, maybe a couple months. And then if this isn't working, oh, this other person that they say I can get it done in 3 months if I buy their $10,000 coaching program, let me go do that instead. Let me ignore everything that Ken's saying. He doesn't know what he's talking about, even though he's helped thousands of other people just like me get a job. I'm going to ignore everything he's saying. And I'm going to go over here to this other guy promising me this magical solution to my problems. And, I think if you understand that it's a business, you are a business, you have to constantly hustle. I might make being on camera look somewhat easy, especially as an introvert, but I've literally been on video for thousands of hours over the years. So my courses and totally messing up video. Like my first course was horrible. Lighting was bad. I was horrible. The mic, I didn't even have an external mic. So the audio was horrible, right? All that stuff, right? So now when people see me on a course and they're like, wow, he can just click record and do stuff. Yeah. But that was years and years and years of doing it, right? And failing. And so I think all of you've got to have kind of a hustle mentality. Now, real quick, I want to pivot to those feeder roles, as Nathan calls them. I call them like transition jobs. It's basically something to get you to where you want to go, essentially is what it is. Someone asked about IT and the QA, what types of jobs. IT help desk, you can pretty much find a lot of different places. Sysadmin, oh, perfect. Nathan's sharing screen, right? Network admin, engineer. A lot of us, I started out IT help desk doing network administration, network engineering work. Then eventually I got into this new stuff I'm doing now, right? There's a lot of those jobs. Some other ones not listed here on StationX stuff is if we think outside of IT specifically, other feeder roles into a cybersecurity company could be things like project management, sales, marketing. And if you go on big conference websites like Black Hat USA, you look at their sponsor list and you go look at the smaller sponsor level, like the lower tier sponsorship level. Look at the companies there. Those are usually smaller companies. Go look at their websites and see what jobs they have open that you qualify for right now based on your skills. I think someone in the chat also mentioned, hey, I'm a mom and I've had other jobs that aren't pertaining to cybersecurity or IT stuff. And people tell me not to listen to my resume or whatever. That's really specific based on the job you're applying for. There's also, real quick, I know that's outside of personal branding, but there's the thing about a one-page resume. I'm not a fan of that. However, the vast majority of hiring managers, HR recruiters, they're looking for that. So try to get your resume to one page. If that means cutting off the fact you've been a mom for 24 years or something, then you may have to do that. Right? So that's person specific, but feeder roles could be a lot of things, right? Traditionally, it's the IT roles, right? Sysadmin, network engineer, network admin. Again, Nathan's got them on the screen here for those that can see the screen, but also things like technical writing, project management, sales, marketing. There's always sales jobs open at companies. Like, I've never seen a company that didn't hire for sales because they need to make money. So obviously sales is always open. Usually there's marketing jobs open. Then other things like project management, program management, et cetera. But the goal with that is not to get like a project management job at McDonald's. That's not really doing you any good, really. The goal would be to like try to get a project management job at like Splunk, or Cisco, or Dark Rhino Security, or whatever, insert whatever security company. That would be your goal with those transition jobs. So that way, then you're going to get trained on their product suite for free. Usually now you become an expert in their products. Now you got something else for your resume. Now you got experience at Splunk on your resume. And as a hiring manager, if you're applying for a SOC analyst job with me now, but you're coming from Splunk, yeah, you did project management, but you've got a couple of Splunk certifications, you're more valuable than someone else just applying to that job. So these transition jobs, don't sleep on them because a lot of you struggling right now could go get these tomorrow. These types of jobs, you literally could qualify for these tomorrow and you could be hired and you could be on your path to your actual cybersecurity job you want to do instead of trying to go from whatever you're doing now, mom, project manager, whatever, trying to go straight to pen tester, SOC analyst, whatever. That's a very competitive route. So the route less competitive is going into one of these feeder roles and into and to eventually getting into your cybersecurity career. There was another question in QA around someone, I think they were an IT system administrator right now. They're trying to get into cybersecurity. You weren't specific in your question on what role in cyber you're trying to get into, but I would actually have very similar advice. And I would also say that you're probably doing cybersecurity work right now in your job. It's just not being called that. The thing I would do, path of least resistance, is that your next performance review, ask your manager if you can get cybersecurity in job title somehow. Can I be the cybersecurity IT system administrator? Something where it's got cybersecurity in job title, because that's going to help you. And that's probably the easiest path for you right now, is just getting the job title changed. And then from there, now you've got cybersecurity on your resume as a buzzword, a keyword. And that makes it easier for you for getting that next. That's usually a path of least resistance for someone that's currently working in IT. Try to get like cybersecurity / like engineer or something worked into your current job title. Bigger company probably can't do it. Smaller company, like a startup or something, they're usually more likely to help you with those types of things. Again, worst they can say is no about that, but that helps you when you start applying for other jobs by having that keyword in it.
Yeah. I think we have to strike a balance here with you guys, that we want to paint the reality so that you don't try and get into it and you think it's all going to be easy. Paint the reality so you will hustle and you will work hard and you'll put the effort in. But at the same time, we also want to motivate you, because there are a lot of opportunities. Obviously, millions of people do work in cybersecurity. You're not trying to become an astronaut. So it's entirely achievable, just the same as it is to become any other profession. But all those professions require the same or similar sort of effort. So I think there's great opportunities if you put in the effort, and obviously personal branding is a key component of that. We've mentioned it, but do we have any examples of the benefits or the fruit of personal branding that you can mention?
Yeah, so I could speak on some people that some of you might see on social media, and would also say for myself, like, prior to me creating a course for cyber back in 2018, for basic pen testing to help people prep for the CEH, or certified ethical hacker. For those that don't know what that cert exam is. But anyways, prior to me doing that, I didn't really do personal branding. I was just that person behind the scenes, so to speak. Of course, with employers, I was always a high performer and things like that. But like, the broader world had no clue who I was. So when I did that course, I went on a lot of like podcasts and media outlets and things like that, which I mentioned earlier, you can do for free. And that helped accelerate a lot more opportunities to me of getting on more things. That's when I started getting like awards and stuff like that. And awards are nice. I'm not a fan of them. I've never been like a trinket. I call them trinkets. I've never been a trinket collector. For me, okay, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for it. But at the same time, an award doesn't mean that there's a lot of awards out there. And especially in this industry, some companies just buy them, like those Cyber X awards you see out there. Companies look at us, we're a winner of the Cyber Excellence Awards. Those I don't know if you can still buy them, but you used to be able to buy them for $1,000. You could make up your own award for $1,000. And then you'd be the only winner of it because you're the one nominating yourself. And no one else knows about the award, right? So then you're all of a sudden, you're the Cyber Excellence Award winner. And a lot of companies actually have done that over the years. Outside of myself, there's a lot of people in the industry that you know of because of the personal branding. The more recent one is Zinette Kamal. And Zinette, forgive me if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but she's here in the U.S. She's based in the U.S., but she's originally from Kenya, her and her husband. Yeah, that's her picture there. But she's done a great job of personal branding on LinkedIn. She also goes on local media outlets to talk about cybersecurity. She wrote a children's book. She published all that herself. She goes on podcasts. She did the TEDx speaking stuff in her local area, right? So she's spent a lot of time building her personal brand on her own, most of it for free. Right? And I don't think aside from travel costs, I don't think she's spent any money. She's won a lot of awards, right? So she's a great example of someone that is newer to the cybersecurity world, right? She does cloud security, but I forget, I think it was maybe 20, I'll get it wrong. So just look her up. But I forget, she hasn't been in long, maybe 5, 6, 7 years or so. Like, she hasn't been in like 20 plus years like some of us. But she's got a great personal brand because she's been on all these media outlets. She gets invited all the time to things. And she just won the International 40 Under 40 for cybersecurity, which I had won a few years back. She just won that actually here this year. I saw her post today on it. So she's a great example that anybody can build a personal brand. But again, it takes some work, right? Zinette's a hustler. She's got 4 kids. She just finished her master's degree. She's married, right? So she's got the responsibilities of the family stuff. She works full time. She's the epitome in my definition of a hustler. When we talk about hustler, someone like Zinette, right? That's constantly on the grind, constantly doing podcasts and media with the news outlets and speaking at different events and things like that, and even book signings for her book with the children. And she's always out there. And I'm not saying you all need to do all of that. You don't have to write a book and all this stuff. But if you're looking of like, how much work do I need to put in to really open up opportunities? She's a good example of that. Myself, I still put in 20+ hour days every single day, even though, so that's why people still know about me. And I've scaled back over the past several years. Maybe not so many people know about me anymore, but still it takes a lot of work, right, to get where you want to go. But the cool thing is eventually there was a point, and I'm going to keep this generic because everyone's got different beliefs on this call. There's a point where the universe is going to reward you, right? There's a point where you're fighting to get up that hill. And then eventually you put in enough work where you're here and then the opportunity's right here meeting you, right? So you're putting in all this work up front, maybe months or even a year or two of work. And then eventually it becomes here where as long as you keep putting in a certain level of work, all the opportunities keep coming to you. But it takes work. It's not easy. I saw someone in a QA had put, hey, you're just basically saying we need to put in work. Yeah, for anything in life. Well, as you mentioned, person that left that comment. Yes, like cybersecurity is no different. And I think the problem is like the media and these educational programs, and StationX excluded because Nathan and them, they tell it like it is. But there's a lot of programs out there that will, I don't want to say they're lying to you, but they'll twist things a little bit to make you think that there's millions and millions of jobs open in cybersecurity. There really are not. There really are not globally. There are not millions of jobs open. There might be million requisitions open, but if you actually look at those, the majority of those are for experienced people. They're not for someone brand new coming from, I don't know, I used to work as a janitor, so I'll say that. So they're not for someone coming as a janitor trying to get your first job. There's very few of those out there, which is why a lot of you are still struggling to find a job because those types of jobs there's just so much risk for a company. A lot of times there's not budget, things like that. But that's where this personal branding we're talking about, that can open up jobs for you where someone may try to go get budget for you to hire you to create a job for you because of all the work you've done with your personal brand, to get your name out there, to give back value. Nathan said earlier, community to other people. I've had jobs created for me before. I've had places reach out like, hey, we want to create this job before I've already got budget for it, but before I actually like formally create this requisition, are you even interested? And I've had that happen many times. I've even had it situations where I'll apply for a job and because of my personal brand, I'm on the interview and they create a whole new role for me that's more money, more compensation, everything for me because of that brand. And because they were basically able to confirm like, yeah, this brand we see, that's the same guy that we're interviewing right now. We can see the consistency there. Right. So there's a lot of things, and it's not just around your job, right? It opens up speaking opportunities. You might get media outlets reaching out to you like, hey, can you give us commentary on, certain things? I've got 3 requests in my inbox right now. I've got to do snippets for articles for these different media outlets. Hey, can you do this or that for us? That comes with your personal brand. Once you establish yourself or they see you establishing yourself, like I said, it's the good analogy is like farming versus fishing, right? The farmer plants their seeds, they water them, they take care of them or whatever. Eventually they reap that harvest. Whereas fishing, I've got to go out and fish every time. Sometimes I'll catch something, sometimes I won't, but every time I got to keep putting in work. But if you just focus on your personal branding, it's like you're a farmer, you just keep sowing those seeds, you keep doing what you're supposed to do. Eventually you're going to reap that harvest, which is going to be all those different opportunities for, again, conference speaking engagements, could be sometimes paid speaking engagements. I wasn't able to do it because of some other personal things, but a few years back, I was going to get an all expense paid trip to Hawaii to speak at a conference, like a totally free trip. It was free for my wife as well. We had her airfare, we would have to cover, but like that, like a free trip, free food, everything, just because of my brand. Again, I had some personal family things, so I couldn't do it, but that's the power of that. I'm not saying you'll get a free trip to Hawaii. Don't say, hey, Ken said you'll get a free trip to Hawaii or something, but opportunities like that present themselves as you continue building your brand. And that's the real key aspect of it. It's not just always employment. It's also just you getting all sorts of opportunities coming your way. And eventually you'll get to a spot, as long as you keep putting in the work, like we said, you'll eventually get to a spot where you have to be picky. You have to say no to certain things because you don't have the time because you're doing all this other stuff.
Yeah, one thing I would mention about Ken is that he is a online social butterfly. So Ken has introduced me to many people, and some of which have ended up working for Next. So I think that's a kind of a practical takeaway. If you help others, the help comes back. So it's a practical thing that, if you know that somebody needs something or in some way you can help out, If you do that, it comes back to you. And it's not because of a woo thing. It's just because people reciprocate.
It is, yeah. And so to get woo for a second though, you mentioned reciprocate. There is a thing called the law of reciprocity, whether you believe in it or not. But essentially, you build up so much essentially equity, right, in giving that people naturally. This is exactly why I can send a text right now if I knew a certain executive had a role open, and I could say, "Hey, here's her LinkedIn profile. That'd be a good fit for that role." And my text will get answered, right, or my call will get answered, or my LinkedIn message gets answered by like a CEO of a big company, not United Healthcare. Anyways, we won't dive into that stuff. But for those that didn't know, there was a CEO assassinated recently in the US. But anyways, I will say though, but like opportunity, the law of reciprocity. So I'm not into organized religion. I know some people probably are, some people probably aren't. I'm gonna paraphrase something because I used to be into organized religion and Christianity, the Bible stuff. Something that I don't know exactly how it's phrase in the Bible for. So again, don't hate me, Christians or whoever out there, but basically there's somewhere in there, there's scripture that says they sow the winds and they reap the whirlwind. So basically what we're talking about here, that law of reciprocity, right? Like what you're putting out, without getting too on all of you, what you're putting out, essentially you're getting back, right? So the more you're giving value, the more people want to help. If you're a jerk on social media, nobody wants to help you. In fact, there was someone that was a jerk a few years ago. Almost the entire industry banished them offline. All sorts of hackers were taking them down, and it did this because they were being a jerk to people. But if you're giving, even your enemies, I actually had someone that didn't like me at all for whatever reason. Some people aren't going to like you no matter what. I don't care, whatever. But this hater, this person would always be hating and stuff like that. But then one day I get a message from them. I referred these few people to your course. Let me know if they don't sign up because I told them they need to buy it right away. And this is a hater, right? But because I kept giving and giving, right, and just totally ignoring the haters, it's just, as Nathan's mentioned, it comes back to you. And it's again, if you're religious, you might believe that it's your deity or whatever that's bringing it to you, whatever. But the reality is, what you put out is what you're going to get eventually back to you. And so we say that give value to others, et cetera. Here's the main reason from just like a logical hiring manager's perspective. And again, this is just Ken's perspective here. But for me, if I look at someone that for free on social media is giving as much as they can, they're taking time out of their day. They're probably skipping watching the movie they want to watch or whatever, hanging with friends to post to try to help someone else that's struggling with that thing or might be struggling with that thing. That's realistically someone I want on my team, right? And there's been several people that I see doing things like that, and I'm invested in different companies, and I'll work hard to try to get them even just some contract work. And so I'm the investor, right? This is what we're going to do type of stuff, right? If you're not familiar with an investor that owns the majority of a company. So I'm able to pull that string because I'm the investor and I see this person working hard and I don't have, maybe the company's too small to support an actual full-time position. Maybe there's some projects they can work on so they can get that experience. And even if it's, I don't like people doing free work, but maybe it's even free work where I just pay them out of my own pocket type of stuff, right? But that all happens because you put in the effort. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen for everyone on this call. I'll go totally broke. I see hundreds of people on this call. I'll go broke if all you want me to hire you for things. But the reality is those opportunities come because putting yourself out there, people feel comfortable. They want to give back to you. They want to help you. They want to introduce you to other people. That's really how you accelerate your career. That's how you even accelerate your life, is just those connections. And you'd be surprised. The other thing I'll say is always treat people, no matter who they are, just because they're in cybersecurity, whatever, even a janitor, because you never know who somebody knows. I've had situations where I'm nice to a front desk person, or I'm nice to the person taking out the trash. And then you find out later that's the cousin of the CEO, right? Or that they know a certain, so never, just life advice in general, like always treat people well, because no matter what, they'll try to go out of their way to help you. We're friends, but I've got a friend that I'm always constantly giving to this person any advice, et cetera. I never ask for anything in return. And so this person happened to be at a meeting for high net worth individuals. Some conversations happened, whatever. All of a sudden, deals coming my way out of nowhere, right? That's the real power of it. And so don't just think of it as your career, because I really want all of you to be open to the fact that you may get actual business opportunities from this personal branding stuff too, right? You might find that no company wants to hire you, but you get enough, here in the US, we call it 1099 contract work. You get enough contract work to pay you like double what you would have made anyway in a regular cybersecurity job, right? So that stuff does happen. And I actually know some people that they couldn't get hired for the life of them, but they started getting so much contract work because they were branding themselves, because they were always treating people, etc. They never thought of starting a business. People were like, hey, I really want you to work on this for me. Please just let me know your rate. And so they started taking those on. And then again, still doing the hustle, still working hard, still treating people the right way. Don't treat them like Elon Musk or others. Treat people the right way. And that will always come back to you in some positive way to benefit you. I've never seen someone give so much and never get anything from, again, if you are into religion, from your deity, or just the universe in general or whatever. I've never seen someone constantly give and never have an opportunity to come their way at a certain point. It just has not, I've never seen it not happen. So the more you give, the more you put in the work, at some point, like I said earlier, at some point you get high enough on that hill or that mountain where everything just starts coming your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share your book for anyone that's interested in interviews, but that brings me on to question I like to ask everybody, really. What's your recommendation for a book, not necessarily cybersecurity, that you think everyone should really read, or that's really made a difference to your life?
I want all of you to pressure Nathan to write another book, to write a book on things so we can all get a signed copy. But I think the biggest thing I see, like when I've interviewed people, is typically people will get nervous in the interview, rightfully. You're being asked a bunch of questions. You don't know what they are in advance. Interviews are designed to, kind of mess with you a bit and see how you solve different problems on the fly. But one of the books, and you don't have to buy the book because I'm going to tell you exactly what the key aspect of it, but there's a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. And basically the whole message in the book, and it's a thick book, but like the whole message I took away from it is basically a single activity. And essentially you just ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario that could happen here? For example, you go for a job interview or something. Before you go in for the interview, what's the worst case? Okay, they hate your guts. They laugh at you. They whatever in your mind the worst thing is. And then you say, okay. And then you have to ask yourself, am I okay with that? And if the answer is no, okay, what can I do to change that? So maybe you got to prepare more or whatever the case might be. But if you're okay with that, if you're like, I'm not a huge fan of this company anyways, I'm just trying to get a job, then you go in like relaxed, right? The key with that, and this is, by the way, this is applicable for anything in life, not just a job interview, but it keeps you relaxed. And what you're going to find, especially for job interviews, if you're more relaxed going into the interview, I don't really care about getting this job, you'll usually get a job offer. Or at a minimum, you move to the next stage, even if you're not like the top candidate going in, even if you don't have the experience and all that stuff. Because it's like that. It's like if you've ever worked in like some companies, you'll see the lazy people that just don't care. And you're like, how did this person become a manager? Like they don't do any work, but they're making like double what I make. How is this possible? And that's how their mentality is. I don't care. So it's for some reason, all the resistance of, again, I'll get woo a little bit here. All the resistance of the universe against them is gone because it's like, whatever. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Who cares? So that's the main message of that book is just, instead of you getting nervous about whatever it is, again, it doesn't have to be an interview. It could be applying for jobs like, oh, I'm not qualified or whatever. But again, just ask yourself, okay, worst case scenario, they say no, they laugh at me, they say I'm funny looking, whatever it is, and then say, okay, am I okay with that? No, I'm not. Okay. Is there anything I can do to change that? Sometimes you can't, but for an interview, you can prepare more and then you practice and become more comfortable, things like that. So that thing is something I use all the time, even like before I go on a podcast. Like I said earlier, I'm an introvert, right? So even a podcast like this where Nathan and I, we've known each other for years, good friends, still would get nervous, right? I'm an introvert, right? But in my head, I'm like, what's the worst case? Maybe Nathan makes fun of me on the whole podcast. I'm like, I'm okay with that. You not got a good sense of humor, whatever. Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? So that book, again, you don't have to buy it. That's the main message of that. There's also some other like cyber books. I can't think of any right now, but there's one, there's also a book called, I don't know who the author is. It's called Seeing the Big Picture. And basically it's a book. It's more of a business book. Yeah, I think it's a Kevin Koch or whatever, but yeah, y'all will find it. I think, actually I got to check. Yeah, it's Kevin Koch is the author. Yeah, it's on my shelf over there. Koch. Yeah, that dude. But basically it helps you understand like the business mindset. Cause at the end of the day, a business is a business, right? So it helps you as like a technical person understand kind of the business and how your leadership will think. Again, you don't have to buy anything that I recommend, even the book that Nathan shared. Actually, if everyone will keep a secret and don't tell the publisher, I'm going to share a version of the first version of our book with Nathan, PDF version. Just please, I'll do the pinky swear here in the US. Promise we won't tell anybody about that. And Nathan can share that out with everyone if he wants in the StationX community. But that book, there's some others.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Just don't tell the publisher. But really, it's out there. Right? People have already been sharing it out for a year or two since we've run it. There's other books around, big into looking at books around like human psychology and stuff so you can understand people. But again, book's not going to ever be a replacement for you having real life experience in something. And you can go on like YouTube and just look at videos for free. So for example, I think it's called Persuasion. There's maybe a book called Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, and I don't remember how to spell his last name, but I think it's like Cialdine. This is his last name or something. He's got some books around like human psychology, right? So stuff like that. There's a book by a former FBI agent around called Never Split the Difference around negotiation stuff. But again, all these things, you can usually find a free version of some of these older books on YouTube for free, an audiobook. And you can also find people that'll do summaries for free on YouTube videos and stuff. If you want human psychology books, just like human psychology book summaries, search for that and you can see what pops up. But anything, even job interview skills, right? We talk about the book and stuff, but also YouTube, there's a lot of people that have, again, a lot of them have a coaching program they want you to buy, but some of them will put out good free information on how to prepare for interviews, how to write resumes. The problem isn't a lack of information these days. It's a lack of effort. We talked about the hustle and stuff. It's not that all this information isn't out there. It's that, well, I'll give you a quick example. Someone reached out. They're like, you do mock interviews. And I just don't do calls anymore. I don't have the time or the patience or any of that stuff. So I don't do mock interviews anymore. And so this person reached out and said, just record yourself asking yourself some questions and answering them as if you were the interviewer and interviewee. And then make sure you're on camera so I can look at your body language and stuff. And then I'll give you feed. No charge. That was like 6 months ago. Never sent me a video. When we talk about hustle and stuff, it's things like that, right? That person could have gotten feedback from a hiring manager. And I was already planning to send it to other hiring managers to get their feedback on how this person interviewed. So you get a whole pool of experienced people that are the people going to hire you, but the person didn't do the effort, right? All they had to do was film a video with Loom or whatever free software. 10, 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how many questions they ask themselves and answer. I already said, I don't care about the audio. It doesn't have to be a perfect video. Just send me a video. Record it with your phone if you want. But that person didn't do it. So we talked a few times throughout this, episode about the hustle, that putting in the effort. That's what's really going to separate all of you from everyone else out there, right? We've had, I think, a few hundred people, 200, 300 people, whatever, on this call throughout it. There's probably less than 10% of the people that are actually going to do what we're saying. It's just the reality of it. So if you're one of that 10%, you're probably going to get a job real quick. It probably won't be next week, but depending on what you're trying to do, if you put in that effort, next few months, you may get a job. Whereas the other people that are excited, they're like, oh, he shared so much good information, but they never do action on it. You're going to see them still on social media, like, keep getting certs. What's the problem? Why don't I keep collecting college degrees? I can't get a job. What's going on? The biggest factor missing is that effort at the end of the day. And so I encourage all of you, hopefully more than 10%, will actually put in the effort on the things we've been sharing on here and put in that work. It takes time, like anything, but eventually you get good, or at least good enough to get your first job.
Yeah. And for putting in the effort, I have a recommended. So this here essentially is really just saying, Ken's saying here about you've got to put in the effort. The big secret is you've got to put the effort in. You've got to be all in, and you've got to hustle. You've got to do your personal branding. And yeah, if anyone's interested, a bit more info there.
There's one, look, I know we're over time, so thanks for everyone staying on. One question in QA was around, and of course I forgot it. It was around like the freelancing stuff. It really depends on your country and what's allowed, but you can go on websites like your Cyber, so FIVER.com, depending on where you are in the world, there's probably other platforms like that. One thing to keep in mind though, is that the vast majority of smaller businesses just don't care about cybersecurity till they're hacked. And so you advertising cybersecurity services probably won't do much on those platforms. If you advertise like security awareness training, that might, but a better route for those with technical skills is a lot of them need help setting up what's called an email autoresponders, GetResponse, active campaigns. There's a lot of them out there these days, but basically setting up their technology stack for them to do marketing and sales and stuff. There's usually some money there. And again, I'm speaking from the US market. Again, other countries, a lot different. There's a caste system and stuff like that. We've got that here in the US, but I'm not for anymore type of thing. There's a lot of opportunity here in the US, but I'm very mindful it doesn't exist in other countries. But websites like that where they already allow freelancers, that also is easier for someone with a small business, like in the US, for payment. I can just pay you through like Fiverr or some third party site, and they handle like the tax, sales tax, or whatever I need to worry about, VAT, I think it is in the EU stuff. They handle all that. So it's easier for the business owner to actually pay you. Again, some of those sites you can't do based on the country you're in, but that's more individual. That's outside the scope of this call. But using sites out there already. And then again, you still got to have hustle. You can't just, there's a movie from, I think it was 1989. So well before some of you were even born. It was called Field of Dreams. It's a baseball movie here in the US. It stars a guy named Kevin Costner, who back then was a big actor. And basically there's one line in the movie that says like, if you build it, they will come. I can tell you right now, in the real world, that does not exist. And the whole thing is like the guy, real quick, the guy builds a baseball diamond in the middle of a cornfield. He's a farmer. He builds it. And then that's the line of the movie. If you build it, they will come. Eventually, like all these dead baseball players show up. And I'm not going to spoil the movie. You can look it up online. It's probably a free version somewhere on YouTube or whatever. But the reality is in the real world, if you build it, they will come doesn't exist. So even if you put up your stuff on a freelance website, you still got to let people know what you can do. So you still got to reach out to business owners here in the US. You can do like volunteer webinars with your local city, the Chamber of Commerce, things like that. Usually different big cities around the world, they've got some kind of a business type of ecosystem, like some kind of organization, even if it's like banks or whatever, financial institutions, like somebody's got something for the business. And so you can say, hey, I'm in cybersecurity or I'm a cybersecurity expert, or whatever. I'd like to do a free webinar for the businesses you work with about how to spot phishing emails or how to secure your mobile device or whatever. Simple things like that. Get your name out there. That also can lead to that contract work I mentioned. But again, like I said, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't exist. You've got to put in that effort. Same thing with your career. Just because you create a LinkedIn doesn't mean people are going to be like, oh, let me go to your profile. You got to, like I said earlier, you got to show value. You got to give back, give value. Then people will come. Then all of a sudden, it'll be a trickle at first. Like the most frustrating thing is when you start posting and nobody's commenting, nobody's liking your post. You get 20 views. That's fine. That we've all been there. I've got 40 something thousand followers on LinkedIn, and I still have posts that get 100 views. So understand that there's the algorithm working against you too. So just consistency. And that's why I said earlier, if you can only post on a Sunday, every Sunday you're posting, right? You can post once a week or once every 2 weeks starting out, whatever you can do. If you feel like you can post every day and you can be consistent with that, then by all means do it. But again, your situation is unique. Some of you might have to go, I'm dating myself here, but if I wanted to use the internet back in the day, which by the way was dial up, usually I'd have to go someplace and use theirs because I didn't have the money for it. And so I would ride my bicycle to wherever to use the dial up and hope that nobody called throwing off the dial up for me to use. Some of you have that same kind of struggle where you have to go someplace to use the internet because you don't have that at where you live. And so again, whatever you be consistent with is the main, even if it's once a month, something is better than nothing. But again, what we talked about earlier, your profile needs to be in order first before you do anything else. Get that squared away, and then you can worry about the other stuff.
Yeah. Somebody asked about if they're nervous in an interview, should they, and they're eager, should they show that in their interview? I thought that was an interesting question. Or they're desperate for the job, should they show that?
No, goodness, no. It's the same thing with like your LinkedIn, right? So if you're reaching out to people and you're like, please give me a job, they're just going to block you. But if you reach out, what we talked about earlier, how can you give value? So if you're in an interview, and I've been there, it is what it is. I really struggled when I was younger financially. One of the reasons I went in the military and here in the US, and it's very difficult. A lot of us have been there. Very few people in cyber like were born with that silver spoon with mom and dad in the home, and they paid for your college, and you had the house and all that. Most of us didn't have all that. We've been there where it's like, if I don't get this job, I can't like pay for food type of stuff. Been there many times. Try to use that method I mentioned earlier. What's the worst case? They say no. Okay, I'm not really okay with this, but I am okay because I know I've got 5 more applications I just put in this morning or whatever. So maybe one of those will give me an interview. It's real hard when you like have no money or you're really struggling financially because you really need this job. The other thing I would say for you in particular is if you're going into an IT or cybersecurity interview and you're like, I desperately need this, think about some of those transition jobs. Can I get one of these other ones easier? Can I get more interviews for a sales job than trying to become a pen tester? Because if you've got like 30 interviews scheduled for sales, if 1 or 2 are like, no, we don't like you, you're a lot less nervous because I got 25 more just this week. I don't care. So it's your situation. Again, I think someone mentioned earlier, like there's not a lot of like pen testing jobs where they're trying to move in to be a pen tester. They got some IT background or whatever, bug bounties. You can do bug crowd or whatever. You can do do some bug bounties, get your name out there, and then that might open up opportunities for you. Also applying for that person in particular with some IT background, apply at bigger companies that maybe have a presence in your country. And again, you may have to go into a transition role just to be at that big company, but then you can move into the actual job you want. But yeah, as far as being nervous in an interview, when basically you need this job or else you can't eat, You can't feed your family. You can't pay your rent or whatever. The only way is to go in beforehand with the mindset, how can I prepare more in advance, get more interviews, maybe get some contract work going or something where I don't need this as much. That's why it's easier for people that already have a job to get a job, because they go in whatever to the interview because they already have a job. And not someone that's been laid off, for example, and been trying for a year to get a job, they're going to come across as more desperate, like you were mentioning, because they don't have that job. They don't have that kind of, security, even though a job is never really security, but they don't have that perceived security because they're like, I need to feed my family. So it's really just that preparation. I know that's a very generic answer for you. I wish I had a better one for you, but it's really just preparing, like, what other things could I do if this cybersecurity stuff doesn't work out? What other things can I do? And actually, before we hopped on live, I was talking to Nathan about here in the US, like insurance claims adjuster is a job. So for those of you watching this in the US and you're like, I need a job, I got to pay my bills, I'm tired of doing Amazon delivery. Like, you can make, depending on the type of insurance adjusting, anywhere from 30 to 75 grand a year starting. Again, it depends a lot on the type of adjusting. And for the lower level, like salaries, those are the places that'll train you for free, get you your license and stuff that you need. And you can go, you can basically get the paycheck starting day one. The higher ones you would have to pay for, which the training, I think, is a couple $100 depending on your state to get your license and maybe some more or whatever. But you can then be making what an entry level SOC analyst would make. I know a lot of, in the US, a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm going to make six figures. No, you're not. As a SOC analyst, you're probably going to make in the 50 to maybe 75 range these days. Again, depends on the employer. Some you might get more, some less, but typically that's the range. So you can make that, do insurance claims adjusting, a lot less barrier to entry. You can literally do the training in a matter of weeks, get your license, start doing work and stuff to pay your bills. Again, that's here in the US where we have a lot more opportunity than other countries. But for that person in particular, start thinking outside the box of what else is available where you live that you could potentially do, even if it's another career, because if you have bills to pay, you have bills to pay. At the end of the day, you don't want to be homeless. I assure you, you don't want to live that life. So that's my advice to that
we have
person.
plenty of people doing stepping stone roles. At StationX, we have a concept of the longer term vision. And within the app, they put it in there. And because that's in the future and it's not necessarily, and we usually say 1 to 5 years for that. And then a lot of people, we have to say to them, you've got to do the milestones on the journey to get there. I was also just going to say as well, when you're thinking about, again, you're in an interview, etc., think about it from the perspective of the person actually trying to hire you. It's actually quite hard to hire good people. So anything you do that makes that easier for me is golden. And if you've got personal branding and things online showing value, that really cuts down the effort I've got to go to. This is the thing about certs. Although often it's a piece of paper, it's a shortcut. And that's the thing. It's a shortcut for HR. And that's why that's where they're there. Some certs, though, you do learn some good stuff. So they are definitely worth doing. But really, if there's things online, it makes it easier for me to know that I want to hire you or I want to interview you. Yeah, so if you think about it from their perspective.
Yeah, especially if you're showing like the hands-on you can do, it makes it so much easier. I look at your LinkedIn, I see that you can do some basic stuff with QRadar or Qualys or one of the release scan. I see that you can connect the dots between a lab you're doing and a problem in the real world. As Nathan said, that makes it easier. Now, that is another caveat there, depending on the company, right? Because some companies will strip out all the personal details, like the name and stuff. So I might get a resume. I don't know if you are, because they stripped out their LinkedIn and all that. So I'm just going on the resume itself. One thing I want to mention also is that two things. I'm going to cover two things here. One is your LinkedIn, your resume, any type of personal branding you do. The only purpose of that when it comes to employment is to get you an interview. And then how you do in the interview is how you actually get the job. So understand those are oftentimes people like connect all those, but really they're siloed. Okay, you sold me on talking to you in the interview because of your personal branding, your resume, whatever. I saw something I like. Now let me talk to you because you're one of the candidates. If you got an interview, some people will say you got the job. I disagree with that, but I think you're a good candidate for the job because you got an interview. And now I'm just trying to mention earlier, make it easy on people, right? Now in my head, I'm just trying to figure out a way to say no to you so I can lower my candidate pool. If you keep me saying yes to you, then you're going to move forward to the next stage, or then other people, and then the next stage, and however many stages. Some companies are ridiculous. I've done 6, 7, 8 interviews before, and just like, when's this going to end type of stuff. Something else about personal branding. Someone asked about the home lab. Should you build like ladding? Depends on the role you're going for. And again, I won't call myself Mr. Free, but I'm all about not spending a lot of money to do things. Like you don't have to spend a lot of money. There's a lot of free versions of tools out there. There's comparable tools that are free that you can use to do a similar thing as like a tool you would use in an enterprise. Just show me that you understand the thing versus a specific tool, if that makes sense to everyone. Like when we're talking about home labbing, you don't need to go out and buy a switch from Cisco and spend whatever amount of money. And that was like the olden days. Oh, look at me. I set up my home network. Look at this. That's the olden days, right? You can literally just do a free AWS account. You do have to put a credit card on file with them, but do a free account. Show me how you do access control or something very basic like that. Record it and then delete everything so you don't get charged by Amazon, and then post that. Hey, look at me. I got cloud skills. I can create a service account and secure it with two-factor authentication. And here's how I did that. And now if I'm looking for someone that's got some cloud familiarity, you're probably going to get an interview, right? Because someone else that didn't show me that. Again, home labbing stuff, free stuff, and again, that really depends on the particular career you choose. But yeah, yes, to your question, yes, it can be part of personal branding. But again, what I mentioned earlier about the medium, if you don't feel comfortable like recording your screen or something of you doing something and explaining it, just do a post, just do a written post or whatever is your comfort level. That's the biggest thing, because if you're not comfortable doing it, you're not going to again, I'm not a big writer. So for me to write a book, hats off to the publisher and my co-authors for keeping me on schedule, because I didn't want to write anything, honestly. And even the second version of the book that we wrote, I was like, oh, when is this going to end type of stuff, right? Because I don't like writing like that. I'm just not naturally a writer. My thing is I'll click record, right? Or I'll come and I'll share hopefully some good stuff on a podcast I get. So understand your medium, what you don't have to necessarily enjoy, but what you're comfortable with. That's the biggest thing. So even a home lab, like if you don't feel comfortable building something and showcasing it, then don't do it. You can build hands-on skills and not record yourself showing it all the time type of thing. Like you can communicate your value and the value you give to others in different ways. So again, whatever you're comfortable with, because when you're comfortable with it, you'll then stick to it and have that consistency, which is what's really going to pay off.
Also, if we're lucky, Ken will come back and do another podcast on interviews and interview prep. So if there's an interest in that, which I know there is, then we'll sort that out as well, and that'll be much appreciated. If people are welcome to connect or follow me on LinkedIn, if they find me, I'm sure it's pretty easy. And also, actually, if anybody has anything interesting that they think that they would like to share that might be nice for the StationX podcast, then you can get in contact to contact@stationx.net, or just go to StationX contact and drop us a message there. So, Ken, I think finally, what's the takeaway then? We've spoke a lot. What's the best single piece of advice we can do? What's the takeaway?
All right, single piece. So I think the single piece will be a broad context, right? The first thing you need to figure out what you actually want. We talked about those kind of transition or feeder roles. You as the individual listening to this or the recording or whatever, you got to figure out what you want to do, number one. Number two, go in with a mindset of I'm going to deliver value to others as much as I can. And with that, wraps that personal branding, all that other stuff we talked about. And then the third thing I think is just really being willing to stick with it, that consistency of, we talk about that hustle, like that consistency is what pays off. A lot of people, like we said, will do it for a month or two, but the people that constantly do it and over time, and because when you think about your posting on social media, it might take people a while to find your post. I've had people comment on the post from a year ago because they just found it. I just showed up in their feed. That consistency is really what's going to get your name out there more and help you be out there. I know that was more than one thing, but pick what you want to do, focus on delivering value to others as much as you can, and then be consistent with it. And eventually, like we said, you'll reap the benefits of that.
Thank you very much for appearing and helping us and everybody else. If there's any other questions that you want to answer, don't let me kick you off. If there's something that you saw that you want to answer.
Yeah. So last one I'll address two real quick. So a couple of people asked about what's the value of a cybersecurity degree. It depends so much, right, on the company, on where you live in the world. The reality is it's not going to be what people claim it is. And what I mean by that is it's not going to be like, oh, you get this degree or you get this certification and you're done and everyone's going to throw millions of dollars of money at you to hire you. That's just not reality, right? No matter what you do, right? Even if you go get, I don't know, ServiceNow or Splunk certs or whatever, there's always more hustle you need to do to get where you want to be. The other thing I want to address, someone asked about the contract work, like How does the branding work for that versus the career stuff? It's the exact same thing. Honestly, it's the exact same thing. The only difference on your profile would be like, I'm open to contract work as well, right? Literally, that's the change on your profile you would make is I'm looking for, this type of role, and I'm also open to contract. And then you still are giving value. You're still branding yourself as that expert in the area. The only difference on your end of additional work is you want to be more proactive than just you want to try to do some like free webinars or different organizations that have those potential clients in them and just keep giving value like that. And that eventually will lead, potentially, I don't want to say it will lead, but potentially will lead to, some contract work coming your way as well. But it's a very minute difference. Overall, the personal branding is the same thing. You're essentially, a lot of people use the term thought leader. You're just building yourself as a thought leader in that area, if you will, even if you're brand new and you're just learning, because you become that go-to person for someone else that Nathan mentioned, someone that might be behind you. Here in the US, we often use the term, someone that's a chapter behind you in the book. You only have to be one chapter ahead of other people, right? For you, it might be easy and second nature to download VirtualBox, install it, download VM images, import them in, and, configure everything, set up a NAT network. But for someone that has no idea how to do that, you're the king or queen, right? Oh, this person's great. But if you've never shared that person doesn't have value. The last thing I'll leave all of you with, especially for those trying to get their first job that are maybe thinking about an expert. And granted, I've been doing pen testing for a while when I put out that first course, but I looked and I saw that there was like all these other people with courses, right, on hacking stuff. And especially this Nathan guy from StationX. And I was like, there's no way. I'm like, nobody's going to take my course. But I was like, well, whatever, I'll put it out. Nobody will take it, whatever. But what I found out when I put it out there and people started taking it is people reached out to me and they said, I'm so glad you put this out. I finally understand this thing because of the way you explain. I've been struggling for years to learn this, and I've never been able to learn it because of my learning disability or whatever until you explain. So for all of you, I want to encourage you. It's not just about personal branding. We talk about the value, but understand there's someone out there right now that can only learn from you somewhere in the world. You don't know where they are. They might be right down the street. They might be all the way across the world, like many of my students. But if you never share what you're learning, if you never share your wisdom, you're actually doing that person a disservice, right? Because they're never going to be what they could be because you're not the person teaching them, right? Again, you've got a way of explaining things that someone else can learn from. And also the other thing I'll add there is that you've got a way of explaining things that even people that are experienced like us can learn from, right? If there's something I'm trying to learn and you might be good at it, someone mentioned they were a software developer. I mentioned I slapped earlier, right? And if you want me to program something to C, good luck. I'm going to pay someone that's good at that to do it for me. So if I wanted to learn C++ and you're an expert in that, right? You're posting about that, for example, then you may explain it in a way that like, oh gosh, yeah, of course. Duh. Right. And I've had that happen with courses. I'm trying to learn something, right? And keep abreast on something like, I don't get this. I don't get how they're teaching it. And then someone else comes along that maybe has a couple years less experience than that person. And they've got a course and I buy it and I'm like, oh my God, it makes perfect sense now. So I really want all of you to understand that it's not, we talk about personal branding and a lot of this is focused on you, right? But the reality is this is more about someone else, right? Someone else out there that needs you to help them get to the next level in their career. And you never know, they might be the person that invents something. They invent that Staples easy button and we just click it like all the vendors claim. We just click it and everything fixes itself. It's magic. But that person will never get there without your help, right? So I really encourage all of you, even if you don't want to build your personal brand, whatever, give something back because there is someone out there that can only learn from the way that you explain it. Even if you feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. I stumble. Maybe I have a stutter. I use stuff like that a lot. Someone out there is going to be like, this person is amazing as an instructor, teaching me these things, even though they're brand new to you. I want to leave you all with that. We get in our heads a lot, especially when you're more entry level and trying to get your first job. Oh, what value would I bring to the world? You have a ton of value right now. And again, someone can only learn from the way you teach it. Please, I really encourage all of you to like actually take the advice we're giving here and actually put in the work and put that information out there that you're learning. Because again, someone right now is waiting on.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. We heavily encourage people to teach others at StationX. The other thing is it increases your own retention rate. I think science shows something like 90% retention rates because you reimagine the subject and re-represent it in your brain. And in doing that and understanding someone else's perspective as to how they might need to receive that information, it helps you learn. Yeah, highly recommend. The last thing Let me just share. Question about how can you learn about cybersecurity? There's lots of places. I recommend Cyber Security Diaries. Check that out. Also, our blog. There's hundreds, maybe there's 1,000 articles here on careers and cybersecurity and every other thing. And of course, you can apply for membership. We only have applications now because actually what we've been talking about here, we're only really looking for people that are ready to really climb the hill. So feel free to apply. Ken, been great having you. I think we ran over by a couple of minutes.
Yeah, just a few. Thanks everyone for your patience and staying on with us. Hopefully we gave you some value with this.
Yes. And hopefully myself and Ken will be back doing something around interviews or maybe something else. And John, thank you for being with us. It's kept us nice and warm. Not talking. All right, guys.
You're welcome.
Oh, good.
Thanks everyone.
All right. Catch you later, everyone. And there you have it. Some incredible insights from Ken about leveraging personal branding to accelerate your cybersecurity career. If this episode helped you think differently about your career journey, smash that button to like and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more industry experts and career-changing content straight to you. And if you're ready to take action now, I've got 2 powerful resources waiting for you below. First, grab our free Cybersecurity Career Mega Pack. It's packed with certification guides, role breakdowns, salary insights, and exclusive tools to match you with your perfect cybersecurity path. Second, check out StationX's comprehensive training programs in the description. We've helped thousands of students launch successful careers in cybersecurity, and we'd love to help you too. So thanks for watching this episode of Cybersecurity Diaries. I'm Nathan, and I'll see you on the next one.